Meeting will come to order. Thank you. I find that the warrant for this annual town meeting has been properly executed and properly served and return of service made by a constable of the town of Littleton. We are in session. Thank you very much for being here this morning under very unusual circumstances. A lot has changed in the past several months, and I know a lot of you have been personally affected by things, and we acknowledge that. I'd also like to acknowledge the extraordinary service that our first responders, police, fire, and EMTs have rendered during this pandemic. Could have a round of applause for them. Thank you. And there are a few new ground rules that I'll go over shortly. But first, I'd like to start with the presentation. If I could have Superintendent Clenchy come forward. Also, Leah Dennehy. We're going to have a presentation for the Art Award for the annual report. And I'm going to turn it over to the Chair of the Selectmen, Cindy Napoli.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. This award is given to Leah Dennehy. She is a Littleton Middle School student. It is the annual Student Art Award recipient. You can view her work in the inside of the annual town report. Leah is a self-taught artist who works primarily with acrylics and digital art. She finds inspiration based on the outdoors, animals, and fantasy. Thank you very much. Congratulations, Leah. Well done.
Okay. Most of the procedures are the same as they would be for any town meeting. There are a few things that are different, obviously, because of where we are. First of all, your seats have been spaced so that there's 6 feet of space between you and your nearest neighbor. So if you wish, you can continue to wear your masks while you're seated. You do not have to wear a mask. If for any reason you get up to get a drink of water, to go to the men's or ladies' room, to stand in line at a microphone, we ask that you do wear your mask when you're in line and when you're speaking at the microphone. So while you're sitting, you're free to take the mask off if it's a little uncomfortable, but otherwise we ask that you do keep the masks on. You were all handed a green and a white sheet of paper, I think, as you came in. And we're going to ask when you vote to, green means yes, and white, it was supposed to be red, but it's a white piece of paper is what they sent us. That'll mean no. We'll also ask you to vote aye and no as well, but that would potentially help me seeing how the votes are, by having a visual cue. So we ask that you use those as well. I think I may have been remiss, and we didn't do the pledge to the flag, so if I could ask everyone to stand, and the flagpole is this way, and we'll start with the pledge to the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag, the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Thank you for that reminder. Also, at the conclusion of the meeting today, we'd ask that you remain seated until you've been officially dismissed by a member of our police department. And we do that so there isn't the usual kind of congregating and rush for the exits, and we're doing that to, again, ensure social distancing. So please wait till you've been dismissed at the end of the meeting and proceed in an orderly fashion to exit. I know the temptation is to congregate and chat with folks you haven't seen in a while, We're asking that people don't do that in this instance. We appreciate your cooperation for that. All right. I'm going to, as we've done in the past, we're going to make use of the consent calendar, and we're going to attempt to bundle together the routine, non-controversial articles that we think can be passed without debate and passed by a single affirmative vote. And as I read through the list of articles, if there's an article that you wish to debate, please yell out "hold" and raise your hand so that we can see and hear you, and we'll debate that article in the normal course of things. The idea is that every article that's not held by anyone for debate, we will vote those as a group and hopefully save some time here this morning. No one need feel pressured in that sense. If you want to speak to an article, please feel free to put a hold on it, and we'll come back to it and handle it in that fashion. Now, specifically, articles that I'm not going to subject to that procedure are the operating budget, the library article, the zoning amendment article, Article 24. Anything, as I said, a budget article, a borrowing, something that town meeting is unfamiliar with, we will not put that into the consent calendar. We'll take that up in the normal course of things. So I think we've done this for the past several meetings. I think most people are familiar with the procedure. It'd be my intention to, at this point, read through the list of articles, and I'll tell you which ones I'm skipping over, and hopefully we can get an affirmative vote on a bundle of articles that are routine reauthorizations, generally not controversial items. So I'll start with Article 1, Town Officers. 2, Annual Report. 3, Bills of Prior Years. Article 4, we're skipping. We're going to take up the operating budget, so that's not included. Article 5, 2021 appropriations into blended CPA Act fund. Use of insurance proceeds. Transfer to undesignated fund. Then the Reuben Hoare Library article, which we will take up. Article 9, revenue reclassification. Article 10, 2021 revolving funds. 11, 2021 Water Enterprise Fund operating budget. Article 12, 2021 Sewer Enterprise Fund operating budget. Article 13, we're going to pass over in this process as well because it's missing a number that will be added later. 14, Park Recreation Community Education Fund Enterprise Fund operating budget. 2021 LCTV receipts reserved for appropriation from the PEG Access Fund. 16, 2021 capital items from available funds. 17, 2021 community preservation budget. 18, 2021 Conservation Commission open space budget. 19, personnel bylaw amendments. 20, stabilization fund. 21, capital on 20 was held, and 21, capital stabilization fund, hold as well. Thank you. 22, use of debt exclusion stabilization fund for 2021 excluded debt. 23, property tax abatements, Gold Star and Senior Citizens and Veterans Tax Work-Off Abatement Program. 24 is a zoning amendment. There'll be a presentation on that and a vote. 25, zoning and general bylaw amendment, rename the Board of Selectmen to Select Board. 26 is a borrowing article, so we're going to take that up as we normally would. 27, accept general law to allow shared positions. 28, general bylaw change, chief procurement officer. 29, general bylaw changes, addition of Elder and Human Services revolving fund. So the holds are on Article 4, the operating budget, Article 8, Reuben Hoare Library construction project, 13, Park Rec community education transfer, Article 20, stabilization fund, 21, capital stabilization fund, 24, zoning amendment, form-based code, and 26, replacement of Cedar Hill water tank borrowing. Other than that, we didn't have a hold on any other article. So with that, if I could have an affirmative motion to approve the items in the consent calendar, inclusive of the motions within the town meeting report for Articles 1, 2, 3, 5, 6, 7, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 16, 18, 19, 22, 23, 25, 27, 28, and 29. Do I hear such a motion?
Mr. Moderator?
Is there a second?
Mr. Moderator?
Yes. Selectman
You included
Kirby.
Article 13.
I'm sorry?
You included Article 13 in that list, which I understand you to have intended to
Okay,
exclude.
if I did so in error. Article 13 is not part of the consent agenda that we're voting on. So with the exception of that, Article 13. Okay. So moved as amended, seconded. Okay, no debate. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye and raising your green card if you could. Aye. Okay. Thank you. Those opposed? Okay, the ayes have it, and I declare it to be a unanimous vote, and we've disposed of the majority of the warrant. Thank you very much. Okay, thank you for pointing that out to me, Selectman Gerbig. So that makes Article 4 the first article. I intend to handle that as we normally do. I'll read through the list of departments. Anyone with a hold on a specific departmental appropriation just needs to call out a hold as they normally would. And we'll go through the budget, then we'll go back and address all of the held items. And in the interest of time, it's also my intention to simply read the department title and not read the appropriations for each and every line item. I'll summarize it by department total, general government, for instance, but not read each total. So if you hear the name, for instance, if you wanted to put a hold on the moderator's budget, when I say moderator, you can say hold, and we can talk about that $100 I don't get anymore. But so with that, I'll read through the list, and we've done this before. And now the appropriation, just so we're clear, the FY 2021 recommended column at the right is the budget appropriation that the Selectmen and Finance Committee are supporting. The other totals are there for information and comparative purposes. All right, we'll start with general government. Town report, town meeting. Moderator. Selectmen. Hold on selectmen. Okay. Town administrator. Finance committee. Reserve fund. Hold. Town accountant. Audit. Assessors. Treasurer. Tax collector. Town council. Human resources. Hold. Information systems. tax title, town clerk, elections and registrations, Conservation Commission, Planning Board, and Appeals Board. And you'll see the total for general government is a recommended $3,021,823. I think we'll continue through the whole budget, then we'll come back to the holds. Public safety, police, hold. Fire EMS, dispatch, hold. Building department, emergency management, crossing guards, canine control. The total for public safety is $5,271,615. Public works, DPW, roadway repairs, parks, snow and ice, transfer station, street lighting, clean lakes, B&M crossing, cemetery department. The total for public works is $2,906,294. Health and Human Services, Health Department, Nashoba Associated Boards of Health, Animal Inspector, Nursing Services, Mental Health Services, Elder and Human Services, Veterans Agent, Veterans Benefits, Disability Commission. Total for Health and Human Services, $547,773. Culture and Recreation, Reuben Hoare Library, Patriots Day, Memorial Day, Historical Commission, Cultural Council, and Shade Tree Committee. Total for Culture and Recreation, $732,498. Other General Government, Municipal Building Committee, Public Buildings, Property and Liability Insurance, Central Communications, Fuel. Total Other Governmental, General Government, $1,139,031. Education, Littleton School Department, hold. Technical school expenditures. Total for education, $22,605,878. Okay, employee benefits. The total there is $7,242,545. Debt service, long-term debt and short-term debt. Total there is $3,577,144. Then we have a long list of transfers, both in and out of the general fund. I'll read down the list again. If you want to hold, go right ahead. Transfers in, ambulance revolving fund, wetland fund, inspectional services revolving fund, wastewater settlement, Oak Hill Cell Tower, Newtown Hill Cell Tower, bond premium, Clean Lakes Fund, sale of cemetery lots, debt exclusion stabilization, community preservation, cable studio benefits, cemetery perpetual care, library trust fund, recreation enterprise trust fund. Total transfers in of $1,229,851. The transfers out of the general fund, OPEB trust fund, TRED tax relief, recreation enterprise, sewer enterprise fund. Transfers out of the general fund, $3,060,160. And all of this rolls up to a total operating budget of $50,104,761, less the amount of transfers, so the total operating budget is proposed to be $48,874,910. So now we'll go back to the beginning of the budget and deal with the first held item, which was Board of Selectmen. So the person that held that item, if you'd come to the microphone. Again, the rules are you have to keep your mask on. Please don't touch the microphone when you speak. And other than that, it's just a plain old town meeting. So, yes, sir, go ahead.
Darrell Baker, Grist Mill Road. First, I have a question. I'm not seeking clarification. I'm going to be actually proposing a motion. Do you want that at this time, or do you want to just clear questions on the holds?
Well, we're doing both. I mean,
Okay.
if it's just a question, we'll clear that up. If someone has a motion, we'll deal with that. So if you've got both, ask the questions and then.
Yeah, motion. Speaking as a citizen, not representing the school committee, as a school committee member, I support the final approved school appropriation that's been approved here. On February 10th, the Select Board voted to reduce the school budget by $75,000 and approve stipends to each Board of Selectmen member. I have concerns with this prioritization by the Select Board that the stipends are higher priority than the school budget. As the events of COVID-19 unfolded, concerns about the FY21 budget and state funding became identified. At the May 4th Select Board meeting, budget adjustments were made. In examining the list of items to be considered for change in FY21, the Selectman stipend was not presented as an option to reduce. When asked why other items were not being considered, the Select Board replied that all items were of higher priority and not being reconsidered at this time. I want to note the school budget was further reduced at that meeting. I have significant concerns about the Select Board's prioritization of their stipends above the school committees and school budget. Town budgets are increasing by 11.9%. School appropriation is increasing 4.03%. I bring this forward to call into question the budget priorities of Selectmen's. I cannot see the stipends as the highest priority items in the budget and in these times of uncertainty for FY21 funds. I therefore respectfully submit the following motion. Reduce the Selectmen's line items, Selectmen's salary wages from $14,000 to $0, with the funds added to the line item Finance Committee Reserve Fund for a total of $325,893.
Second.
Thank you for supporting my motion.
Okay. Now that amendment is what's before the body, so we'd ask anyone who wishes to speak to that amendment to come forward. I think I'd like to hear first from the Board of Selectmen on that. Selectman DeCoste.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Thank you, Mr. Baker, for the amendment and respect the process. The prioritization of that particular $75,000 that Mr. Baker is calling into question was for a plan for funding full-day kindergarten, of which $75,000 was allocated. The school committee, in their budget request, was asking for the $75,000 twice, so it was a $150,000 request, so that was backed off. We did appropriate $123,000, my math might be off by a couple thousand, it's either 121 or 123, I believe, during those meetings. And just to kind of speak to the stipends, it's been something that's been discussed for many, many years, and the amount of time that any elected official or any volunteer puts into this community, and Mr. Baker, through you, Mr. Moderator, brought up the pandemic that we're dealing with. I would venture to guess that any one of my colleagues up here on the Board of Selectmen, as well as any number of other volunteers and elected officials, have put in excess of 30, 40 hours a week, trying to make sure that the health and safety of our residents is foremost. And I respectfully ask that we do not vote in the affirmative for this amendment, and we leave the stipend in front of us. It's not something, I mean, each one of us takes time off of work. It's something we got elected to. We got elected without the stipend, but more and more time is being demanded of each of us, and I don't think a a nominal stipend. Some communities have in excess of $3,000, $4,000, $5,000 as a stipend for their select boards. So I would ask that it get left in there in consideration for the amount of time and funds. We attend a number of different conferences, and we don't get reimbursed for mileage and that kind of thing. So I respectfully ask that you, the body, not vote to support this amendment.
Okay, thank you. I think I neglected to mention earlier that for the purposes of this meeting, comments will be limited to 2 minutes per individual in the interest of time. And I'll also remind you that the amendment is what's being discussed currently, so hopefully your comments pertain to that amendment. Go ahead, ma'am.
Christine Nordhaus, Star Hill. To speak to the item, the volunteerism aspect, you volunteered to do this job, you volunteered, so do your job or get out of the way so somebody else will do it. And there's no reason, and it's highly inappropriate for the select board to be voting to give themselves a raise while everyone else in town is tightening their belts and working just as hard and under worse circumstances than the select board. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. Anyone else wish to be heard with respect to the amendment? Okay, go ahead, Selectman DeCoste.
Just wanted to give a point of clarification. There was the $14,000 adjustment in the selectmen's budget. $3,500 of that is for minutes. We end up having to pay a senior to come in and do the minutes for us because we don't have the staff to do it. So 10.5 is what the proposed stipend for the Board of Selectmen. So 10.5 is divided by 5.
Okay, that's a friendly amendment. So it is then to reduce the selectmen's appropriation by $10,500, selectmen's salaries, and increase the reserve fund by $10,500. Okay, thank you. Yes, sir.
George Sanders, 672 Great Road. Mr. Moderator, I just want to ask a favor here for a late hold on education under technical school expenditures.
We'll take that up. That's fine. Thank you. Okay, again, with respect to the amendment. Hopefully.
Matthew Nordhaus, Star Hill. There are many other boards who work just as hard as the selectmen with respect, like FinCom spends many hours. There are also town employees I know who are working more than their allotted hours to try to take care of business. And I believe that if there are actually expenses for conventions or conferences, that should be, that you should absolutely be reimbursed for that, but I am opposed to the stipend. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, yes, ma'am.
Teresa Campbell, 32 Snow Drive. Does paying the selectmen mean that they're participating in the retirement fund? And if so, how does that impact the overall budget for the retirement fund?
Okay, thank you. Do we want the finance director to answer that? Yes, please. Is your mic?
It does not. They are not eligible for the pension fund.
All right, seeing no one at the microphone, I think we're ready to take a vote then. The proposed amendment is to reduce selectmen's salaries by $10,500 and increase the reserve fund appropriation by $10,500 then. All those in favor of the amendment, please signify by saying aye and raising your green cards. Okay, those opposed, the white cards. Jeez, that's very good. Yeah, that's kind of close. I can't really discern it at this point, so we're going to have to enlist our counters. It'll take them a moment to get in here, but we'll ask you to do that again. If the check-in people could come in and help us out with a vote, that would be appreciated.
Clarify, Mr. Moderator, this is on the amendment.
On the amendment only, for selectmen's. Yeah, no, it's. All right, bear with us. As you can see, it's not so easy to scale the fence and get in here, so. Oh, okay. We all set? Okay, all those in favor of the amendment, please raise your green cards, and the tellers will be around to count them. Keep them up till you know someone's counted you. All right. I think we have everyone. Please lower your green cards. Okay, and all those opposed, please signify by raising your white card.
So you're voting on reducing your line item for the selectmen by
500.
10,500. So the line item salaries and
All right. We want to move on to the next one while they're gathering? Okay. All right, we're going to proceed to the next hold while they're tallying that vote. And the next held item actually is the reserve fund. So could the person that held that come to the microphone and explain, or is it related to the first amendment? Yes. Okay, yeah, let them get your microphone up, Daryl. So your hold is related to the amendment.
Yes, in order to make sure
Okay.
that the budget balanced to zero, I had to hold on that
Okay.
line item. So
All right,
they're
then-
interconnected.
So that's being tallied, so we'll move on then to human resources. I appreciate that it's a long way to the microphone, so bear with us. Yes, sir.
Brian?
Yep. No, you can,
Okay.
yeah,
Brian
just don't
Hall,
touch it.
16 Fletcher Lane. I just wanted to know if this is just an item that's been moved or if this is a new position. And in general, there's a lot of motion of things back and forth, things being split out. It would be great to give us a little more heads up about that. But just looking for clarification.
Okay. Finance Director or Finance Committee?
So it is technically a new position. Currently, our assistant treasurer is our HR director as well. And per the audit, they have requested that we actually split out that position. And so the HR administrator is a new position. However, the vast majority of the budget was in the employee benefits section previously. So a lot of the expenses that were associated with the HR budget were already in the budget, just in the employee benefits section.
Yes, sir.
Through the moderator, can you just say how much of the actual increase is? Because I can't tell.
Sure, the actual increase is the salary of $77,611.
Okay, thank you. Fails, okay. The vote for the amendment was 61 in favor, 70 opposed, so the amendment fails. And we now move on to the next held item, which is the police department. Could the person that held that come forward, ask their question? No change to the reserve fund then? Yep. Yes, sir.
Bartlett Harvey, 146 Mill Road. As mentioned before, the town net operating budget has increased by 4.8%. The school department budget has only increased by 4%, and I find that the police department has increased the appropriation by 18%. Which amounts to $346,000 and change. I'd like to know what that increase covers and why such a big jump is justified in a year when the school department is under pressure from the state to provide protective gear to the students, which is not in the school budget.
Okay, thank you. Does anyone, okay, Finance Director?
Thank you. So there's a couple things with the police budget, as we've discussed before, that things shifted from what was previously voted capital items into the operating budget because they actually do not fit the capital definition in the financial policy. And so about $35,000 of expenses that you used to previously vote in the capital budget did move into the police operating budget. In addition, we have the police officer that was added as well this year to the police budget, so that also was part of the increase. And as well as there was 2 items, $20,000 each, for a total of $40,000, that were previously being funded out of an improper funding source, and they had to move into the operating budget per the rules and regulations regarding that funding source.
Okay,
So there was a number of expenses that had to shift into the operating budget this year.
Thank you. Board of Selectmen?
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Just want to make the previous speaker, through you, Mr. Moderator, aware that an increase of one staff member on a $2.3 million budget has a much more significant impact on the percentage of the total budget. So a $2.3 million budget versus a $22 million budget, those percentages aren't really telling the whole story. It's the actual dollar amount, and it's a matter of need. I mean, in the past, when the schools have needed to hire staff, the town's folks have agreed to do that and have added the staff. So, thank you.
Thank you. We'll move to the next held item, which was dispatch.
Charlotte Russell, 73 Foster Street. Basically, same question, just like an explanation of the increase. Thank you.
Thank you. Finance Director?
Thank you. So the increase in the dispatch budget, in 2018, they added 2 communication officers, and as well as in this budget, they are increasing their per diem or part-time staff to help cover the volume of calls. Their volume of calls have increased in the dispatch center, therefore they need the part-time staff to help. As well as the overtime that's created for vacation, sick, and personal time for that staff.
Okay, thank you. The next hold I have is on the Littleton School Department. Could whoever held that step to the microphone?
Hi, Erica Podgorny, Fox Lane. I actually don't know if this is the appropriate time for this. I held this because, and I also held the stabilization funds because I noticed that a lot of departments are getting enterprise funds, and those are funds that can be used in case in these times they need extra money. And I commend the process of making sure we're tightening our budgets under these times. But extra money was put into the stabilization fund, which I understand requires another town meeting in order to use. I know the school department is going to be getting recommendations very soon about what they're going to have to be doing for the fall, and I'm wondering how extra money is going to be able to be appropriated to them from stabilization if we need to have another town meeting. And so I'm wondering if money should be put in a more readily available form.
Okay, thank you. Does anyone wish to address that? Yes, the Finance Director?
Thank you. So 2 answers to that. One, the Finance Committee Reserve Fund, which, as you noticed, is increased this year, is available to the school department as well, should they need that funding source. We are also getting federal funds on the town side, and I believe, and the school department can correct me if I'm wrong, they also might be receiving as well some direct federal aid. And so those are both sources of funding for the school department, should they need it for any mandates or extra expenses they have related to the COVID-19 pandemic. In addition, the General Stabilization Fund is available for the school department as well, should they need it as well.
Okay, thank you. Yes, sir.
Mr. Moderator, Mike Fontanella, Chairman of the School Committee. I appreciate the point that Erica is making Relative to Cheryl's statement, at this point, we have no information that there is any funding pending that is directly going to be directed right to school departments or school districts. We are hopeful that that will happen as the federal and state government continue to figure out how we're all going to get through this crisis. But at the moment, we have no definitive information about any particular funding that will be available for us at this time. Having said that, again, I appreciate the point Eric is making. The school committee fully expects, and I'm sure the Board of Selectmen and Finance Committee expect as well, that we will be debating the budget this summer and into the fall, especially as we get more information on the state budget and the level of local aid. We've made some assumptions and modeled the budget accordingly, but none of us thinks that we're 100% right, and we're waiting for more definitive information. So to Erica's point, I think there'll be some movement, hopefully some of it could be good news, but if there's bad news, that all the boards will get together through the summer and the fall to make sure that the schools and the town are funded appropriately. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. The school department is saying they don't know at this moment what their need might be for next school year. There will be as I understand it, a special town meeting in the fall where a number of budget adjustments, can and will be considered. Okay. Thank you. Yes.
Could you just click?
Is there? No, just 1 second. Board of Selectmen.
Just to, this on? Okay. Just to reiterate point made by Cheryl earlier too, the reserve fund in this budget is effectively doubled in size from what it usually is, and that does not require a town meeting vote to access. It's an act of the Finance Committee, so it can be accessed on a quicker emergency basis.
That's correct. Yes.
Stabilization fund does need to be voted on?
That does have to come up at a subsequent town meeting, yes. And it would be available at a fall town meeting, correct.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, Mr. Sanders asked for a belated hold on the technical school expenditures.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. George Sanders, 672 Great Road. On this education budget, is that for the students that are going to Nashoba Tech? Or is that the student plus, I know they went in and asked for a repair on the roof over there. So what is this amount for here?
Finance Director?
It's our allocation for the students that go to the Nashoba Valley Tech. As well, it also includes one student that goes to a technical school called North Shore Agricultural School as well, too. I don't know how many students go to the technical schools. Perhaps someone else might be able to
Okay,
answer.
we have our representative to Nashoba Tech, patiently waiting in line. I think he's got some information for us. Thank you. Yes, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Charlie Ellis, current chair of Nashoba Valley Technical High School. This morning, I'd like to introduce you to Dr. Denise Pigeon, the superintendent of Nashoba Valley Technical High School, and she will be responding to the question. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Dr. Pigeon?
Thank you. As was stated before, the figure that is in the budget book is not just for Nashoba Tech, but it's also, it is also for another student that is attending another technical school. Nashoba, our overall FY21 budget is a 3.26% increase over last year. The increase to the town of Littleton does also include 6 additional students attending our school district from last year. And to address the question regarding the roof, I know when we came forward last year for the roof project, our promise to you was that we had some debt that was coming off the books from a previous roof project. That did occur. The increase to the town of Littleton for the roof project was minimal.
Okay, thank you. So I think the answer is that the technical school line item contains more than just the Nashoba Tech assessment. It includes charges for all Littleton students attending technical high schools. Recognize Selectman DeCoste, the Board of Selectmen.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Just one point of clarification. If we send 8 students to the technical schools, it's prorated, so that the amount that we spend, the investment that we make in these children is prorated. If Chelmsford has a higher percentage of students that they send, and they pay obviously a higher nut. So it's not just an arbitrary number. It's the Dr. Pigeon and Charlie and their team figure out what the budget is, and then it's prorated based upon the number of students. So it's pretty well calculated, and they do publish a finance packet that is pretty inclusive. So if anybody needed that, I'm sure that's online.
Thank you. Okay. I think that effectively dealt with the last hold we had on the budget. If I could then get a motion to approve the town operating budget as printed for Article 4 in the warrant. So moved. Second? Okay, all those in favor signify by saying aye, raising your cards. Aye. Those opposed? Okay, there are a few there, but it passes by the necessary majority, and I declare it a vote. Thank you very much. We'll now move to Article 8, since we have already approved the intervening articles. And this is sponsored by the Library Trustees and the Board of Selectmen. It's been moved and seconded by the Permanent Municipal Building Committee that the town vote to approve Article 8 as printed in the warrant. And I'll recognize Selectman Glavy to explain this article.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. You may recall from past town meeting votes, the town voted monies for the design of this project as well as the construction budget. The design part of the activity anticipated initially to be as part of the design phase is actually going to be conducted in the construction phase. So this article asks you to simply transfer the amount in question here to that phase of the project. It does not increase the scope of the project, the size of the project, or any new bells or whistles. It's exactly as was presented to you. I can refer any specific questions to the library project to Mark Rambacker, I know is here and prepared to speak to it. But to not do this or to otherwise address the $1.5 million would potentially jeopardize our state reimbursement program. So this is just moving the money from the appropriated design function into the construction function. And if indeed at the end of the project we have monies to return, couldn't be more fortunate that the prior argument is proof positive. Article 7, you'll see when we don't spend all the money on a project, we come back and return it to the town for repurposing, and that's what happened with the alumni field article, and it remains to be seen whether it will happen with the library project, but we hope so. And if there's any further questions, I defer to Mr. Rambacker.
Thank you. Does anyone wish to speak to Article 8? If not, we'll proceed to a vote, and this does require a 2/3 vote. So we're amending a prior borrowing article. All those in favor of the motion as read for Article 8, please signify by saying aye and raising your cards. All right. And those opposed? Okay. I don't see any, so I declare that to be a unanimous vote, and the Article 8 passes. Thank you very much. Okay, we'll now move to Article 13. And I don't know if we yet have a number for this article. I'm hoping we do. The motion is moved and seconded by the Park and Recreation Commission that the town vote to transfer blank from the undesignated fund balance to the Park and Recreation Enterprise Fund to cover the FY 2020 deficit. Is there an amount for this motion?
Yes, there is, moderator. It is $433,851.34.
Okay, I'll read that again. Moved and seconded by the Park and Recreation Commission that the town vote to transfer $433,851.34 from the undesignated fund balance to the Park and Recreation Enterprise Fund to cover the FY 2020 deficit. Is there anyone who wishes to speak to this article? I think it bears some explaining. If someone would like to, maybe someone on the Finance Committee or Selectmen could explain.
I've got it, Tim.
Okay. Selectman Gerbig?
Morning, everyone. The basis of this transfer is that, not surprisingly, as the COVID pandemic has sort of run through town, Parks and Rec has had to shut down a lot of programs that generate a lot of revenue, creating a significant hole in the fiscal year 2020 budget, that is our past budget, the one that we're closing out, that is being addressed through this transfer. You can see in your budget book that the transfer was thought to be up to $465,000. Parks and Rec has worked tirelessly to try and bring that down. The total that this article is ultimately looking for is $433,000 and change, about $444,000. You'll note that Article 14 looks forwards into the coming fiscal year, and I'll note that Parks and Rec is working very hard to make sure that this, in the sense that there are foreseeable elements of this that can be addressed in the coming budget, are addressed, but there was essentially no way to predict what has come to pass and sort of the carnage in Parks and Rec's budget over the last handful of months. So while we can address what's going forward, the town needs to find a way to plug those holes retroactively in the 2020 budget. And with that, I'll defer either, depending on how you want to structure this, Mr. Moderator, to either Alicia Day, our head of Parks and Rec, or to Cheryl Herrick-Stella, our finance director, depending on how they want to coordinate it.
Let's hear from Alicia Day at this moment. Go ahead.
Good morning. Thank you. So I just, Chase did a pretty good job on explaining everything, but I figure I've got a statement, so I might as well read it out to everybody so you guys can kind of understand a bit more in depth. So the Parks, Recreation, and Community Education Department is an enterprise fund. So for those of you that are new to this idea, it means about 80% of our budget is based off of the money that we collect from programs and services. We make the majority of our fiscal revenue in March, April, May, and June. Last year, about 45% of our entire budgeted revenue was collected during these 4 months. Unfortunately, this has been the time of the COVID-19 pandemic. So we have had to cancel, refund all of our spring programs and prorate our winter programs. We've also had to cancel our teen after-school programs, April school vacation programs, and we've also canceled many of our summer programs like swim lessons and our after-school enrichment programs. We've tried to create or transfer as many programs as we could to virtual options as possible, and we've started to bring revenue back at the beach, which is why there's that trickle of money coming in, but it's nowhere near the normal capacity that we need to be able to operate. The following factors contribute to the current deficit. So the lack of revenue that we would have made in a normal spring and summer, we only were able to collect about 25% of what we have in prior years. The 294 refunds that we processed to refund program services that had to be canceled due to the pandemic. Salary and benefits for our 6 full-time staff to get us through the rest of this time frame. All other part-time staff were furloughed back in March, so we've been cut back on that. Invoices that were required to pay in full for services that have been rendered, as well as any supplies that needed to be purchased for COVID-19 for our programs moving forward. We do have the beach open, and we are planning on running Camp Tehadawon. So that brings us to the total deficit of the $433,852. We'll round it up. So in general, you know, we had discussions with the town administrator, Nina Nazarian, finance director, Cheryl Herrick-Stella, town treasurer, Stephen Nudie, And we've discussed many different options that we could to be able to handle this. So at this time, I think, we've spoken to the Board of Selectmen, Park Commission, and Finance Committee, and we've all felt that the best agreed upon way to handle the situation is the appropriation from the free cash at town meeting today. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else who wishes to speak to this article? Essentially, it's a transfer from the town's free cash to cover the current year park and recreation deficit. Okay, go ahead, please.
Hi, Gu Newman, Goldsmith Street. Can you hear me?
Yes.
I just have a question. If that funding, I know there was some discussion of, oh, okay. There you go. I know there was some discussion of putting up some barriers and fences up at Long Lake, and I was wondering if that was included in that, because that's certainly not something that, especially since there's no programs and swim lessons, and people are really using the fields or the lake to, get out and see things and walk around my daily walk. I just want to make sure that that's not included in that.
Okay,
Okay.
thank you. Someone speak to that? Yes, please, Alicia.
We don't have any barricades that are down there, so nothing has been purchased at that point in time. Anything that we have up there is more going to be items that, so any of, Gu, if you're talking specifically about like the barrels and stuff?
I know that there was some discussion of putting up big fences so people couldn't walk.
Oh, no, that's absolutely not, gonna happen, nor is that part of the process. Thanks, Gu.
All right, thank you. I think we're ready to proceed to a vote. All those in favor of the motion as read under Article 13, please signify by saying aye and raising your green card. Okay, those opposed? Okay, the ayes clearly have it. I declare it to be a unanimous vote. Madam Clerk, please so record. Thank you very much. We will now move to the first of two held articles, Article 20, Stabilization Fund. It moved and seconded by the Board of Selectmen that the town vote to approve Article 20 as printed in the warrant. Does the person who held this article still have a question on that? Okay.
I held it as part of my original question about the school budget, but that's been
You're
cleared up.
satisfied? Okay. Anyone else wish to speak to Article 20? All right. If not, we'll proceed to a vote. All those in favor of the motion as read, please signify by saying aye, raising your green card. Okay. All those opposed? Okay, seeing none, the motion passes by a unanimous vote, rather. And Madam Clerk, please so record. Thank you. We'll move to Article 21, Capital Stabilization Fund. And the motion is moved and seconded by the Board of Selectmen that the town vote to approve Article 21 as printed in the warrant. I presume the same situation exists with respect to the hold. Does anyone else want to speak to Article 21? Okay. If not, we'll proceed to a vote. All those in favor of the motion as read, please signify by saying aye. Raising your cards. All those opposed? Okay. The ayes have it. I declare it passes by a unanimous vote. Thank you very much. And now this brings us to Article 24, which will be the last article on the warrant because we voted a lot of things earlier in the interest of time, which I think was a good idea. I would just remind you that...
Point of order, sir?
Yes.
Just to be clear, you still have Article 26 as well.
Oh, yep, no. All right. Well, my point is still valid. When we get to the end, just remain seated until someone dismisses you. That was the point I was trying to make, and it's the second time Selectman Gerbic has rightly caught me trying to get out of here early. So we'll go to, wish I was getting paid. Yeah, the Code Article 24, this is a zoning amendment, and we have a presentation from the Planning Board, but before that, we have a requirement that a zoning amendment can only be considered if the Planning Board, in fact, held a public hearing and has a recommendation for town meeting. So I'll ask the Planning Board for that first of all, and then we'll get into the actual motion.
Anna Houston, Planning Board Chair. The Planning Board hearing on Article 24 Form-Based Code Zoning Amendment was duly advertised and held on March 5th, 2020. The Planning Board members voted to recommend this bylaw to town meeting. 3 in favor, Houston, Laterzo, and Yates, 1 opposed, Portante, and 1 abstained, Montanari.
Okay, thank you. I'll now read the motion, which I hope everyone picked up as a handout because it's the only one that's different than what was published in the warrant book. It had to be expanded to include some exhibits from the Planning Board. So I'll read it. Moved and seconded by the Planning Board that the town vote to approve Article 24 to amend Chapter 173, the zoning bylaws as follows. 1, to amend Section 173-22 of the zoning bylaws to delete the Village Common Business District and replace it with a Village Common Mixed-Use District as shown in this handout. 2, to add to the zoning bylaws a new Article 30 entitled Village Common, consisting of sections 173-215 to 173-225 as shown in this handout. And 3, to delete Section 173-20 of the zoning bylaws entitled Special Design Provisions for the Village Common District as shown in the attached handout. 4, to amend use regulations and intensity of use schedule as shown in this handout. And 5, to amend the zoning map to delete the Village Common Business District and show the new Village Common Mixed Use District as shown on page 38 of the town meeting report. I will now turn it over to Anna Houston for the Planning Board's presentation.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. As you can well imagine, when I learned yesterday that there would be no video and that I would be doing everything by paper, it was like, great, now what am I going to do? So good morning. It's wonderful to see so many neighbors, friends, and colleagues here, and I hope that you have been well. So I'm going to hold up this T-shirt. Can everybody see this T-shirt? And then the back of it. So this T-shirt is from 4 years ago. And it's because 4 years ago, residents attended forums for the master plan. And your ideas and vision from those forums is why form-based code is in front of us today as Article 24. Residents said in those forums and charrettes, we want the common revitalized to be a walkable, bikeable, mixed-use village center. And we heard this again in 2018 during public design workshops. To achieve that vision, the first thing that needs to happen is a change in zoning. Form-based code is a planning tool that we use to draft the proposed new zoning bylaw. And this is important to us in Littleton because it makes everything look and feel better than traditional zoning. So if you got your handouts this morning, and if you received the handout that looks like this, it's a picture that's worth 1,000 words because a drawing of form-based code in the upper right-hand corner is a lot more appealing as it allows us to be proactive about what we want, not just reactive to what a development proposal wants. Form-based code allows us to protect Littleton's character for the future. Form-based code can build from existing character, such as in the example on the bottom of that handout. For us, this means our form-based code will be 21 pages of very specific bylaws that we want to see, from the height of the buildings to the massings to the types of frontage that we will allow. This is how form-based code can improve our common into a place that we want. Now, if you turn the page over and you take a look at the illustration, well, what if this could be what the common looks like? Adding to our existing shops, restaurants, and services and housing on the common. And it would look complementary to the farmhouses we already have throughout Littleton. This drawing is an example of what we could have by changing the zoning bylaw. The improvements that we would see, the changes that we would see, if the Village Common form-based code is voted upon today affirmatively, we would see a walkable place like what is experienced in West Acton and other New England villages with shopping districts. Buildings will only be 2.5 stories high, the height that Littleton residents said we're most comfortable with. There will be a place for us to go to with restaurants, including outdoor spaces, which obviously are needed today, retail shops, services, and even smaller housing units above the shops in the back of the lots, which will vary our housing stock, especially for seniors and young adults. So let me repeat that. We want more, smaller, one-bedroom units for seniors and young adults to stay in Littleton. Let's remember, there isn't that much space in the Common. In the revitalization roadmap created in 2018, an economic analysis was done that showed that for buildings at 2.5 stories high, if, and that's a big if, every possible space was built out for housing, the maximum units would be 193. And even though that might sound like a lot and might sound scary, that would be at least over 10 years, averaging to about 20 units a year. My point is that it will take years, maybe even a decade for change. The Common is not like the Point where there was one developer. In the Common, there are different property owners, and therefore different developments will happen at different times. And it's unrealistic to guess what each development might contain, as every private property owner can choose to remain the same, develop their property, or sell their property. But what we do know is that when change is made, form-based code would be used and the development will look like what we want. Which takes me to the bylaw, and I know that you have a lot of paper in front of you. And as Mr. Moderator said, there are 5 parts, and these 5 parts consist of making the changes required in our other bylaws in order to do this, and it also is the 21 pages of the form-based code, the new bylaws for the Common, and only the Common. This zoning bylaw does not change the zoning anywhere else in town except for the Common. We're also removing the old bylaws, which in your packet are on pages 23 to 25. You'll see that they're crossed out in red, and that's taking out the old Common zoning bylaws. You'll also see the uses, what will be allowed in the Common. And then finally, in our warrant, if you look in the warrant on page 38, you will see a map of the proposed Village Common district boundary. The differences between the old map and the new map include some homes on Adams, Goldsmith, and Jennifer Street that are being moved back into the residential district out of the business district. The Elastic Factory and the current IBM site will have 255 feet from King Street going back within the form-based code district. So these final documents that you have in your hand were created with input from residents through various hearings and individually, conversations, talking with town department heads, and hearing from the business community, including property and business owners via the Rotary Club of Littleton and the Littleton Business Association, and in hearing from other boards and commissions, such as the Master Plan Implementation Committee and the Board of Selectmen. That input was so important so that we can set the best bylaws for what we want to see in Littleton Common. So in addition to thanking every individual who has provided input and guidance, thank you. I'd also like to thank my fellow board members, current and past, such as Ed Mullen, for asking lots of questions to make this a solid bylaw. And a very big thanks to our town planner, Maren Toohill, who has become a subject matter expert on form-based code. If form-based code passes today, Maren and other staff will receive additional training paid for by a grant that Maren sought so that form-based code can be administered well. In closing, I'd like to reiterate that form-based code is the first step to revitalizing the common. We cannot have what is in this illustration without form-based code. So a vote yes today sets the stage for revitalization to happen. A vote no means that the common stays the same, or we get something we don't want. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other boards or committees that would like to be heard from regarding the zoning amendment? Obviously, the floor is open to public comment as well. I recognize Selectman Napoli.
Certainly. Thank you, Mr. Moderator. So I just wanted to speak on behalf of the Board of Selectmen. I'm also a co-chair of the Littleton Affordable Housing Trust. Form-based code is, as Chair Houston noted, the first step in revitalization of Littleton Common. Clearly in the master plan, the residents made it evident what we were looking for in the common, and I think it's important that we, if we're going to move forward with revitalization, that we have an aesthetically pleasing downtown that's really reflective of our community as a whole. From a housing perspective, this is a very important first step to revitalizing the common and creating some alternative housing for our community. Our housing stock is unbalanced. We have little options for seniors to downsize. We have little options for young adults who want to live and work in our community. Workforce housing is very important to maintain and sustain the town of Littleton, and that is something that we're lacking. So I appreciate Chair Houston's presentation today, and I appreciate all the hard work that has gone into the form-based code initiative, but I just want to emphasize that this is an important first step for the revitalization of Littleton Common as well as meeting other needs in our community. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, I see one person in line who'd like to make a comment. If Anna, if you could move to the other microphone in case there are questions, that'd be great. Yes, sir, come forward, please.
Mr. Moderator, George Sanders, 672 Great Road. I'm in favor of this article, but first and foremost, I would like to commend the chair and its members for the fine job that they did over several months here to put this document together. It is a document that is very important that we pass here today. It will also help with our tax base here in Littleton by bringing in a little bit more commercial to help out with the resident, lowering their taxes, hopefully, but at the same time, we need a facelift up in the common area. And this document protects us as citizens here in Littleton to sort of kind of keep the rural area of Littleton that Littleton is used to. And I highly encourage you today to support this document. We need it. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Is there anyone else who wishes to be heard with respect to Article 24, the zoning amendment for form-based code? If not, we can move to a vote. And it does require a 2/3 majority since it is an amendment to the zoning code. So we'll try for a a voice vote, and if it's not overwhelming, we'll go to the hand count to be precise about it. So all those in favor of the motion for Article 24 as read and as printed in the Planning Board's handout for Article 24, please signify by saying aye, raising your card, your hands. Okay. All those opposed? Okay. There are a few. I declare that it passes by the necessary 2/3 supermajority. I declare it a vote. Thank you very much. And now, as Selectman Gerbig rightly pointed out, we will move to Article 26. And now I see why, because this is the one he's presenting, so he didn't want me to steal his airtime. Replacement of Cedar Hill water tank. This is a borrowing article, does require a 2/3 majority. It's been moved and seconded by the Board of Water Commissioners that the town vote to authorize the borrowing of $3 million for the Cedar Road storage tank as printed in the warrant. You'll see that the Finance Committee, Board of Water Commissioners, and Board of Selectmen all support Article 26. I recognize Selectman Gerbig.
Thanks, Tim. I actually don't really have much to say. I just wanted to make sure we didn't gloss over it. Really what this comes down to, it's a 70-year-old piece of equipment. Mass DEP is requiring the town to replace it, rightfully. The Water Department's put together a great plan to address that piece of infrastructure. And Nick Lawler, the head of our Light and Water Department, is here to answer any questions.
Okay, thank you. Does anyone wish to be heard with respect to Article 26? It is a borrowing, does require 2/3 vote. I think we're all familiar with the water tank that's being described. If not, we'll proceed to a vote. And again, I'll remind you, we'll conclude the vote, we'll dissolve town meeting, but then please remain seated until you're dismissed. Thank you very much. All right, all those in favor of the motion as read for Article 26, please signify by saying aye and raising your green cards. Aye, okay. Those opposed? Okay, I don't see any, so I declare that the motion passes by the necessary majority. And I declare it a vote, the necessary 2/3 majority as a unanimous vote. And I do so declare. So thank you very much. Yes, recognize Ms. Russell to speak.
Charlotte Russell, 73 Foster Street. I was really kind of concerned about coming to town meeting, and I just want to thank, before we dissolve, everybody who made us feel safe. I'm sure it was a big logistical and technical effort, so thank you very much for it.
Yeah, I'm glad you said that, Charlotte, because it really was a very big planning effort, and I want to specifically thank the town clerk for her efforts in putting this together. And a lot of other folks, LCTV and other town employees that made this, I think, a success. And I think it's fitting that we held this meeting on Alumni Field, because after all, you paid for it. So nice to get to use it once in a while. So with that, I'll entertain a motion to dissolve, and I'll just ask everyone to hang tight till the police move in and move you on. Thank you very much, and thanks to everyone that was part of putting the meeting on, the Board of Selectmen, Finance Committee as well. Thank you very much. Is there a motion to dissolve? Okay, second? Second, not debate. All those in favor signify by saying aye and raising the green card one more time. Opposed, nay. We are dissolved. Thank you.